Happy Spiritual Sunday to you all, and welcome back to um, another episode, another lesson in Kabbalistic wisdom, and in this case, a special deep appreciation for what we have. And so, let's start out reading from Karen's book. So Karen writes like this: spirituality is believing that everyone has the right to draw spiritual energy and to bring that light into their lives and the lives of others. It's being cognizant that the light force transcends the physical world and exists in each and every person. It's about caring for the welfare of others and not just looking out for ourselves. When this is our spirituality, we can arrive at a place where we have a sense of unity with our neighbor and the blessings of the light in our lives and in the world. And so essentially that's the whole fundamental root of the Kabbalah Centre, which is what I'd like to talk about. Because today, you could go on all the social media, etc. You can find Kabbalah all over the world. All kinds of people out there teaching different aspects of Kabbalah, calling it Kabbalah, whatever they like. But I want today, especially today, because many of you are going to join us here right after Spiritual Sunday for the gala event that the Kabbalah Centre is having worldwide called Ignite the Light. And so in honor of that, I wanted to share the story of how this idea of Kabbalah all over the world, every human being on earth around the world now has the ability to learn true Kabbalah. But it wasn't always that way. For thousands of years, it was held in small groups. Some of you to this day maybe have even had your relatives tell you, no, you're not allowed to learn Kabbalah unless you're an Orthodox Jewish man, married, over 40, and very scholarly. But the fact that Kabbalah is all over the world sort of flies in the face of that. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, is sort of the story, briefly, of two people who made it possible for you and me and anybody in the world to learn Kabbalah. And a tiny taste, if you will, of what they had to go through, that people today, anyone and their brother can say, yes, let me teach you some Kabbalah. And they can read from this, that, or the other thing, and it might inspire you in ways or inspire people in ways, etc. But how they can do that now without all of the animosity and antagonism and pain and suffering the great Kabbalists of the past went through, is because of these two people we're going to talk about now, the Rav and Karen. So just let's go back fundamentally. Kabbalah is technology of the soul. If it started, we have to say, way back in the beginnings of humanity, the time of Adam and Eve, the time even before that, the Big Bang, the wisdom of the Zohar came into existence because the Zohar is the blueprint of this universe in every way, including all scientific understanding, the essence of whatever you want to call religion, spirituality, etc. It's all in the Zohar. So the Zohar is the technology of the soul, because it starts describing the endless world what happened in the endless world and how you and I came from the endless world into this world of physicality and the purpose of life. So let's even say the first book of Kabbalah, the seed of the Zohar that most people hear about, the book of formation by Abraham the patriarch, 4,000 years ago. In essence, that predates Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, etc., etc. So it cannot be that the Zohar and Kabbalah is a religious doctrine or teaching that belongs to a certain religious group or certain segment of humanity. As clearly stated in the teachings of the Kabbalah Centre, it is technology of the soul. And since every human being on earth has a soul, like we just read from Karen, everyone has the light force in them, because nobody could exist and nothing could exist without the light force. Everyone has a soul. Yes, we have free will. We can do all the negative things that you and I do. People can do with an accumulated amount of negative behavior. So block their soul that they're doing all the heinous things that people are doing in the world today. But that doesn't take away from the light in their soul. So we came into this world just to imitate the Creator, shine our light 24/7. But as we talked about last week and often in the classes and what we learn here on Spiritual Sunday also, we put an AI program in our head called the opponent that is there to put up a little bit of resistance and opposition to the idea of shining our light and bringing light, true lasting light of the Creator from our soul out into the world, put up that resistance. Our job is to overcome that resistance and fulfill the mission that we came here for. Okay. So part of that opposition is what I just told you, the false belief that Kabbalah is Jewish and for married men, etc., etc. No, it's for every human being. And Kabbalists from the beginning of time have always been in opposition to that. They were willing to give their life to bring Kabbalistic wisdom to people all around the world. But if you think about it in simple terms, because people will tell you, and we'll hear all kinds of stuff today. Even today, it's still a little bit out there. How come the Zohar wasn't brought to the masses 500, 600, 800, 1,000, 2,000 years ago? Well, simple. There was no reason. There was no reason. There was always a pure lineage from Adam and Eve, technically, till Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai 2,000 years ago, who put the Zohar in writing. Moses received the Zohar orally on Mount Sinai. And it was passed down, as they call it, mouth to ear, mouth to ear, mouth to ear, from one master Kabbalist to his single disciple, who became the next master Kabbalist, and down the line. So there was always one of those great Kabbalists keeping the Zohar alive. But even the Zohar said, at the time of Rabbi Shimon, it was going to be hidden for 12 centuries. Why? Because, as we often teach in the center, imagine you and I trying to explain computers, cell phones, even protons, neutrons, and electrons to people 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. They wouldn't be able to grasp the idea. And even as we see historically, people who brought these sort of mystical truths to the world were often tortured and tormented and killed. Because everybody thought either they were crazy, they were devils, they were witches and warlocks, whatever it may have been. But there was always a lineage of Kabbalists. In our time, and that's what I want to cut to, Rav Yehuda Ashlag, the founder of the Kabbalah Centre, was able, because of the lineage that had come to him, his teacher, and to this day, his teacher is unknown because he wanted it that way. But Rav Ashlag founded the center to eventually be able to bring Kabbalah to the masses. But even in Rav Ashlag's time, 100 years ago, people were persecuting him for even teaching the Orthodox Jewish learned men that were supposed to be allowed to be taught Kabbalah. His student, who became the next master Kabbalist, Rav Brandwein, also, there are terrible things that were done to him for the crime of teaching Zohar and Kabbalah to people. And again, that small supposed group that was allowed, Orthodox, married, Jewish, learned men. But as the great Kabbalists before them, they were willing to fight the uphill battle because they saw in ways you and I don't. What the possible future could hold. As the Zohar describes it, either terrible, terrible, heaven forbid a billion times, pain, suffering, and death, beyond anything we've seen to this day, bringing the end of chaos to the world by waking up the soul in every person, or the spiritual revolution to bring awakening of the soul in every human being, awakening the soul and the desire of the soul for its piece of heaven on earth. So as we all could understand, it was either running away from pain or running after peace and harmony and joy and blessings. And because they saw that, they were willing to do what they needed to do to continue this lineage. And then, of course, Rav Brandwein's disciple, Rav Berg. And I encourage you, if you want to know that story, so you have this book, Education of a Kabbalist, is the Rav's memoir, if you will, of his time with Rav Brandwein, the lessons he learned, and also you can read for your edification in the beginning the 4 requirements of what a true Kabbalist is. Because now that the Rav and Karen brought Kabbalah out to the masses, anybody who wants to say they're teaching Kabbalah can say they're teaching Kabbalah. But how do we know who's teaching what? And so the Rav delineates what he learned from his teacher and his teacher's teacher, literally, back to the wisdom of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, 4 things that are requirements to be a true Kabbalist. So the Rav, and you can read the story, how the Rav met his teacher, etc., etc. So the Rav is part of this lineage, and that's what we're celebrating, Ignite the Light. It's the time of the Rav's birthday, when the Rav's soul came into this world as Rav Philip Berg, who eventually became the Rav of the Kabbalah Centre. And so this Ignite the Light, which I know many of you are going to join us right after Spiritual Sunday to hear more stories and things, but I just wanted to touch on some of the main points for those of you who may not have yet registered for the Ignite the Light or whatever. So the Rav comes with the wisdom. The Rav comes from the lineage. And as the Zohar says, simply because the light is infinite, therefore always comes the solution before the problem. Because the light is the solution to everything, and the problems we have are based on our misuse of our free will with the help of that AI program called the opponent in our head that's there to make us, as Karen said, we read in the beginning, think for ourselves alone. And the mission we came here and the energy of our soul, the peace of the Creator in us is no, shine the light out. Love your neighbor as yourself. Concern yourself with other people, because those other people are truly yourself. As we often say here, only one person came into this world. And then it split to Adam and Eve and the 8.5 billion people. So Rav Ashlag wrote and taught Rabbi Brandwein, eventually would come someone who would be able to bring this wisdom to the world. So the Rav had the light of this lineage, as did Rav Brandwein, Rav Ashlag, etc. But the vessel wasn't there. And the seed of the vessel that brought about the beginnings of bringing this wisdom to the world is called Karen Berg. And here's Karen's. If you want to know more details, I was thinking maybe I'll read a little bit from this, but you can't read a little bit. But you want to know the story of not only Karen's beginning and the Rav's beginning, but most importantly, how the two came together, and especially with the support of Rabbi Brandwein. And maybe I'll just tell you that story quickly. So here's the Rav. The Rav had been a businessman, very successful businessman, very, very philanthropic. In fact, the Rav was the first person to be served kosher food in the White House under John Kennedy. Because the Rav, okay, we can keep going into, the Rav knew political people. The Rav was very successful and very involved in community efforts, etc. So the Rav met his teacher, Rav Brandwein, and for years studied and was then the next piece, the next person in this lineage. But you and I understand the light is infinite, so why don't we all have infinite blessings, experience infinite bliss? Because what Kabbalah is teaching us, what we teach here on Spiritual Sunday and in the center, how to create an open vessel that lets the light be manifest. Because without a vessel, the light is only infinite potential of infinite bliss. The vessel, and that's why the more we share difficultly, effort to forgive the nasty person, to shine light into the darkness of our guilt, shame, fear, animosity, hurt, jealousy, whatever, that opens up our vessel to allow the light of our soul to be manifest. So Karen was the vessel that joined with the Rav, so you have the light of the lineage and you have the vessel of Karen, which again you can read into Unlikely People, what made Karen the perfect vessel for the Rav. And so when the two of them came together, just briefly, the Rav wasn't sure if he was allowed, so to speak, to teach anybody else, certainly Karen. And as the recounting goes, the Rav was asking. Rav Brandwein had left the world. Karen and the Rav had met now that the Rabbi Philip Berg was now the Kabbalistic Rav Berg, changed his nature. Now, the two of them who had met some years before, but had no affinity whatsoever, both lives had to change, and now they met, and Karen's spiritual consciousness, her spiritual nature, was now matched with the Rav, who had gone from the religiosity consciousness into the spiritual consciousness. Now they could meet. So the Rav was asked by Karen to teach Kabbalah. He said he didn't know if he could. He had to ask his teacher. So there's a way that the Kabbalists ask in a dream. And so the Rav was asking his teacher, Rav Brandwein, if he was allowed to teach Karen Kabbalah. And remember, at this point, there's no internet, there's nobody teaching Kabbalah. And the Rav still, as Rav Brandwein and Rav Asa, were teaching only small groups. And now Karen wants to learn Kabbalah from the Rav. So the story goes that they were going to meet, and the Rav would ask his teacher and then give Karen the answer. Well, the Rav didn't get the answer. Rav Brandwein didn't come to the Rav and give him an answer. So when they met, the Rav was going to tell Karen, no, I'm sorry, I didn't get the answer, yes. When they met, though, Karen recounted a dream that she had that was still like pounding in her head, so to speak. And Karen had never met Rabbi Brandwein. So the Rav says, what was the dream? Says, well, this man, and she describes Rabbi Brandwein, who she had never seen nor met. You know, this man in a black coat with a cane, cane, put his hands on her head, said something that she couldn't understand, which was ultimately, we know, a blessing in Hebrew. And she said, and from that dream, she had a headache. And when they met, she was still having that headache. And the Rav realized Karen described Rab Brandwein exactly. And the Rav understood that Rab Brandwein went to Karen and gave her the blessing to be the vessel to bring the wisdom of Kabbalah to the world. So the two of them start, but as history shows us, it wasn't an easy path. And when Karen told the Rav, after they had started learning, and Karen says, you know, if you can teach this to me, who had no religious background in any way, shape, or form, but give it to Karen in an understandable way, she said, then we have to teach this to the world. This has to go to everybody. And the Rav famously says, they're going to kill us. And Karen says, well, at least we'll die for something important. And that was the beginnings, but it was still an uphill battle. They were ostracized. There was one incident that Karen recounts in the book, because they were teaching Kabbalah to the non-religious, outside that false understood limitation. Somebody came, smacked her in the head with a bat, sent her with a concussion to the hospital. First and foremost, Karen didn't hold it against the person who did it, and they just went forward because the two of them saw the mission and saw the possibilities of bringing this wisdom to the world, and that was the beginnings of the center. To teach classes, which the Rav started to do, and then along the way, bring people who would become teachers of this wisdom. What today we call the chevre, the friends, like myself, who teach classes all around the world. Because of that meeting and that determination, you and I are here, and people around the world have been learning this tremendous wisdom. And so, again, you can read the two books, Two Unlikely People, Karen's story of the two of them, a little bit of their backgrounds and how they met, and the Rav's book of his time with Rav Brandwein and what he learned in order to pass this wisdom on to all of us and open it up to the world. But I just want to share with you, before we do our meditation, a few of the stories. So, as I shared with you, when they first started, it was an uphill battle because they were first ones in history to bring this wisdom to the world. And again, the AI program put it in various ways. The Zohar was either the devil's work, depending on which background people had, because it talked about reincarnation and astrology and different things like that. Or in, quote, traditional Judaism, it was so holy a book. And that's where Satan, the opponent in the head, made it, well, a person has to be that holy to be able to touch the Zohar. So either way, it was beyond people. In either way, either it was, the devil's work, or it was too holy for us. Either way, the opponent was keeping it out of the hands of the masses. And Rav Ashlag wrote over 100 years ago, you will know the end of pain, suffering, and death is near when his teachings are given to the entire world. And that was what the Rav and Karen have done, brought it to the entire world. So in the beginning it was a lot of, because we stood in the face of this tradition, etc. So there was a lot of criticism of the center in all the different ways. The Rav never knew Rabbi Brandwein. It was all fake and false. It was a cult. It was only about money. It was, I don't know, terrible things like that. And terrible stories were told. When I started in 1987, as a student, I didn't hear much of it. But in January 88, when I became a teacher and I started literally going out knocking on the doors to bring this wisdom to people, because there was no internet, there was no other way really to bring it to the masses. So we literally would go knocking on doors and offer Kabbalah and the Zohar to people. So of course, at that point, fighting the uphill battle, yes, I didn't have to go through quite what the Rav and Karen went through, but knocking on doors to bring this wisdom to every person. And the Rav always emphasized, you knock on every door because you don't know who's going to be there. So, of course, we're awakening the power of the opponent to put up opposition. Can't be real, etc., etc. But miracles would happen. You'd meet people out of nowhere. I told one of the stories, before I tell you about I told one of these stories in the class this week, and somebody asked me to repeat it to one of their friends. So knocking on the doors, you meet people cold calling. So, hello, my name is Chaim. I'm with the Kabbalah Centre. Do you know of Kabbalah? Whatever, metaphysical teaching, spiritual wisdom, whatever. Yes, yes, no, no. So miracles would happen, and this one still sticks in my mind. And so I'm sharing it with you because it's been asked to be repeated a couple times this week. So I'm knocking in this industrial plant in San Fernando Valley, and I meet this man. I knock on the door. I walk in, and he's sitting there. And I said, hi, my name is Chaim. I'm with the Kabbalah Centre. Maybe you know of Kabbalah. He says, I think I've heard of it, but not really. And for whatever reason, the inspiration came. And unlike what we were doing at that time, sort of right off the bat, usually it's, let me give you a book of introduction or whatever. I went right for the Zohar. I said, we have these books of the Zohar. They're a blessing to have in your house. And he just looked at me and he says, please bring them to me. I need a blessing in my house. And that was it. 23 books, Aramaic and Hebrew, and he took it. Something in his heart was open, and it was the right time for him to be presented with it. Now, we've done that, and I did that for almost 11 years, and all of the teachers who were there at that time could tell you it wasn't easy, and not everybody, even you say, here's a book, the Kabbalah for the layman books, sort of introductory books, or Wheels of the Soul, the first book the Rav wrote on reincarnation. They would look at it, no thank you, yes, no, and some people even had very negative things to say. Okay, that was what we went through. But with all the criticism, there was one time somebody mentioned to the Rav, about all the animosity that was thrown at the Rav and Karen and at the center, whatever, and the Rav simply looked and said, I have no time for hatred. I'm busy spreading the light. And that, in essence, was the Rav and Karen. And that was the lessons that I learned, and all of us teachers have learned from the Rav. Also, the Rav used to tell us, when you're going knocking on doors, he says, you've got to envision. And there were two basic examples that the Rav shared with me. I'm sure there's others with other teachers. But the Rav would say once, envision yourself, you're walking into this office or whatever it is, this house, the person is in jail, and you're walking in with a key to the jail, which is what the Zohar and the wisdom of Kabbalah is. Take us out of the limitations of the physical material world of pain, suffering, and death, draw from the spiritual world what's called the 99%, and as many of you have experienced, and I for sure, being free from the limitations of the physical world. That's spiritual evolution, is to be living on a higher level of manifestation of our soul's 100% light. The other one, the Rav would say, when you're going into their office or whatever it is, you envision that they're, heaven forbid, but their house is on fire and you're coming with the extinguisher, the fire extinguisher. Either way, it was to help us, because as many of you might know, not an easy thing to knock on doors. The rejection and all the rest of it, it's not easy on the ego. But the Rav explained to us that was the real purpose, to help us transform as we were sharing the light of the Zohar and the wisdom of Kabbalah with people. Love your neighbor as yourself simultaneously. Doesn't mean, first let me learn to love myself more and more and then I'll love other people. No, simultaneously. So as my ego and my limitations were breaking down by the effort and the commitment to bring this wisdom to the world in my level, knocking on doors, also, the only way I could do that is by helping others, as we do here on Spiritual Sunday. As I'm shining the light to you, I'm getting a breakthrough, I'm getting inspiration, I'm getting guidance, and awakening in your soul. And hopefully, each one of you getting that boost, the awakening from your soul that's giving you a solution right now, a guidance from your soul, direction, an answer that you've been looking for. Because we already have all the answers. It's just we have to be able to hear it by quieting down the voice of the opponent in our head and upping the voice of our soul. There was one other story that I want to share with you. There's a story goes back to Rabbi Akiva, and I just try and make it quick here. So Rabbi Akiva, one of the highest souls ever, he was a great master Kabbalist, but on a physical level, it looked like he died a horrible death. The Romans tied him down, skinned him, layers and layers of skin. But the story goes he had a master teacher, and one day his teacher was sick, preparing to leave the world, and Rabbi Akiva comes into his teacher, and his teacher says, "Why weren't you here visiting me? Where were you?" He says, "Well, I was teaching people this wisdom." And his teacher, and I'm cutting it very short, his teacher appears to be on the outside, cursed him and said he cursed him to the worst death ever. So then they caught Rabbi Akiva because the Romans declared you can't teach Kabbalah, you have to stop this and this. But, as all great Kabbalists, willing to risk their life, he was still teaching. So they caught him, and as they tie him up, one of his students comes and says, "Rabbi Akiva, just call down the angels, wipe out all these Romans, and, what are you doing?" And he tells his student, "Go away from me, you snake. This is the only reason I came into this world. This is the proof." Meaning, this was the last thing. Was he willing to give his life for the spread of the light? And so he was there. And the Rav always told us, as the Kabbalists taught, the first piece of skin that was taken from Rabbi Akiva, his soul left. Because now he had proven, he had lived into his commitment to be willing to give his life. Had he just escaped it, okay, it's great and wonderful, but he wouldn't have finished his tikkun. And so I tell you that story, so what was it really? His teacher wasn't cursing him. His teacher was helping to break the hold of Rabbi Akiva's opponent so he would have added strength, the support of unity to go through what he needed to go through to finish his tikkun. So now fast forward to I guess it was late 89, maybe 90. So I'm working in the office with the Rav because I spoke English. American, first American to be doing this knocking on the door. The rest at that time were all Israeli teachers, other than the Rav and Karen. So I'm working in the office and I'm working with the Rav on printing the books and things like that. So I have an inside track of kind of the things the Rav would do that makes the books that we print special. Anyway, so one day I'm in the office and the Rav, the Rav's office door was closed, and all of a sudden I hear the Rav screaming, "You idiot, bah, 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 bah," like really lambasting somebody on the phone. I have no idea who. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I've never heard the Rav like that. I don't want to ever do anything to make the Rav have to yell at me like that. Okay, so whatever the few minute conversation was, screaming, and then hangs up. Now, you and I when we are mad and then you hang up and you walk away, you're like this, you're still feeling that anger. No. The Rav opens the door and I'm waiting to see what comes out. The Rav opens the door and very peacefully, calmly, like the Rav, just, okay, Chaim, let's get to, the printing, whatever it was we were doing in the office. I'm thinking, wow. Fast forward, like Rabbi Akiva's teacher, the Rav wasn't screaming at the person. This person that the Rav was screaming at, or I thought was screaming at, was actually doing something similar as Rabbi Akiva's teacher. Because this person then, down the line, shortly thereafter, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. They took one testicle, etc., but he was still able to have children, thank goodness, etc., and he went on, he survived, and on and on. And I realized then, after the fact, and thinking of that experience, the Rav was giving him strength to go through what he had to go through and not only survive the cancer, but also be able to have children, and thank goodness, also grandchildren to this day. So, and then the last thing I want to share with you about this, because as you all know, right, and I repeat every chance possible, if you don't have one of these, either the Sacred Zohar, or you can get the set, that's okay too. Like you see behind me, the big brown set. It's supposed to be off. The English and the Aramaic, but have one of these. The pocket Zohar, keep it with you to be surrounded in the light. And here's the Sacred Zohar, which is all of the Aramaic, so you have the entire Zohar. Protection for the house, protection in you, etc. So yes, as the Rav always taught us, it's always about the Zohar. Get the Zohar out there. We have to surround the world with the Zohar, get rid of darkness. But in May of 2001, and you all know what came September 2001. So we were at the holiday, if you know, Shavuot, and the Rav during the break gathers all the teachers, and the Rav's telling us. And at that point, we had just finished printing the biggest printing of Zohar in history, 50,000 sets, as you see behind me, the brown Zohar here, the English Aramaic. And the Rav says he got the message, we have to spread 1 million sets of Zohar. And then the Rav proceeded to explain to us. He says, the government, since 1945, have been collecting taxes on energy bills to do something with nuclear waste. Those of you know Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was now the atomic bombs. So and the Rav knew the exact number, whatever it was, $1.35 trillion they've collected now, and this is 2001. They've got the money, but they don't have the technology what to do with it. All they know is put it in cement and put it in the ground, which we know is not real protection from radioactivity. The Rav says, but I don't know. Says, I trust Rabbi Shimon. And Rabbi Shimon says the Zohar will remove all the pain, suffering, and death and the chaos in the world. So the Rav said, we'll take 151 boxes of Zohar, we'll put it in a nuclear dump, and the Rav literally stood up in front of us and said, then we'll take a Geiger counter, and the Rav doing like this, and we'll see how the Zohar takes away radioactivity. He says, they have the money, they don't have the technology. We have the technology, the Zohar, but we don't have that much money to be able to spread enough around the world. That was the ultimate new phase, if you will, of the beginning and the worldwide focus of bringing the Zohar to the world. And as you all know, September 11th, the whole world changed. And if you are familiar, 1 week later, we had 2,600 people in the International Rosh Hashanah, New Year's, which is the birth of humanity, not a Jewish New Year's, in Times Square. which is also a whole story. 1 week after 9/11, bringing Zohar to the world, Jew, Christian, Muslims, Buddhists, all of us had gathered from centers around the world to be united in the new year of humanity, in the birthday of humanity, where the Kabbalists say 1 year's energy, 1 year's light of life, prosperity, good relationships are being set for the entire world. And this is why everyone is invited to join us in Rosh Hashanah, because we can shift more of the negative things we've done, transform them into positive and pluses in our life in the seed of our year. And that's the mission of the center. Yes, we teach Kabbalah. We have books now of Michael and Monica out there. We're reaching the masses. Not enough yet. We haven't spread a critical mass. But now I hope you understand more importantly, more clearly, why I ask you every week, not only have a Zohar, but help support the Zohar project. That we can bring this Zohar to the world faster than the chaos is increasing. So I want to do meditation, and then I'm running actually to the center for Ignite the Light. Ein Mem Mem. This is the one that came to me today because 72 names we know are different facets of the light of the Creator. And this one is a function button because the Hebrew letters shine light. We explain every week. This one is about passion. And so as the Rav and Karen have passion to bring this wisdom to the world, which they did, and begin enlightening the world and spreading the Zohar and making it, as they say, a household word, understanding, I would like us to awaken the passion in us to help bring the Zohar and this wisdom to every human being on earth at an accelerated rate, that we can finish all the darkness and bring the revelation of all the light, peace on earth, and unity. So just Ein Mem Mem, keep it in your mind. Feet flat on the floor, hands comfortably in your lap. Take a few deep breaths, breathing in through your nose the light of the Creator through the physical breath you take. Hold it for a moment. Let it flow from head to toe. Exhale through your mouth. That there's a circulation of the light. Allowing yourself to relax into the light of the Creator that fills you and surrounds you. With every breath, allow yourself to experience more and more of that light. To feel enveloped in that light. Feeling the warmth, the love, unconditional love that is the light of the Creator in you and around you. And together we envision the Ein Mem Mem just above our head, shining the light that is true passion for the light, that awakens and strengthens our passion to be pure conduits of the light of the Creator. Awaken and strengthening our passion to bring the end of pain, suffering, and death to the world by the spread of the Zohar. And allow that Ein Mem Mem power to enter through the top of your head and spreading its light and energy of passion for the light, passion for the unity of humanity, passion for the end of pain, suffering, and death, by strengthening the passion of spreading the Zohar, removing the angel of death, the opponent AI program, removing the darkness, and illuminating the solutions, the truth that we are all one, and that our only opposition, the only thing that we are to fight and overcome, is that piece of the opponent that's in each of our heads. Allow the Ein Mem Mem to bring its power and its energy of passion to your heart and to your head, awakening the pure light of your soul, feeling greater and greater passion, desire to have your fullest blessings by shining your light, 100% of it, unconditionally out from your heart and soul out to the world. And let us then together take that beam of light from our heart and soul, and together in unity, that we can be the critical mass necessary to shift the cosmic balance from darkness to light. Envision, see, feel, think a beam of light out of your heart and soul, the Ein Mem Mem, shining it to the heart and soul through the heart and soul family and friends, to the particular people in your life that have pushed your buttons, that you have any separation from, spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, because of whatever challenge there may have been. Reach their heart and soul with the Ein Mem Mem to break free from your blockages of the anger, the resentment, the guilt, the shame, whatever it may have been. Allow the light that extends from your heart and soul, Ein Mem Mem, removing the darkness, allowing more of the light of your soul to shine into your world. And then through those people, out to the heart and soul of every person on earth, that together we see Ein Mem Mem, passion to achieve the only objective we all came out of the endless world for, shining our light out from our heart and soul 24/7 unconditionally. See the smiles on everyone's face as the Ein Mem Mem awakening their passion for the light as the source of all lasting blessings. As the guidance, power, strength, clarity to move more and more on the path of the light, through the obstacles, through the blockages, through the challenges that may present themselves in our lives, knowing that the light shining from us takes away the darkness, that the light shining from us reveals all of our blessings, peace, love, prosperity, protection, health, happiness, joy. all the right things in all the right times for the highest good of all. Consciously become aware of that greater sense of peace that's flowing through you now. Commit yourself to emanate this light, the light of your heart and soul, the light the Creator implanted in you, 24/7, unconditionally. Using the Ein Mem Mem. Together we take one more deep breath, anchoring this to keep it with us. Great passion for the light. And slowly exhale and open your eyes. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to seeing you shortly for the Ignite the Light. Have an amazing week. If you have questions, anything I may have said, more you'd like to know, write me, email me, message me here on Facebook, and let's just commit ourselves. Spread enough Zohar, enough light in the world, all the darkness, all the fragmentation, all the pain and suffering disappears, and heaven and earth shows up. God bless.